Hey guys, my name is Batumio, and today I wanted to give my initial impressions of Battlefield 4. I've played for a while now, probably longer than I should have since it's only been out for a day, but I've been really enjoying the game so far. And so today I wanted to talk about what I've been enjoying, the things that kind of get a little annoying, and just kind of my overall thoughts. And so the first thing that I wanted to talk about are the maps themselves, because in my opinion, this is easily the strongest aspect of the game. It is clear that DICE put a lot of time into not only designing these maps, but also to play test them to make sure that they worked well and to make sure that they flowed. Every single map that I played on had plenty of action, and there's also every single type of combat and gameplay that you could want. If you want that tight-knit close encounter combat, there are going to be maps in there for you. If you want to have all-out vehicle warfare, there are plenty of maps that also fit that criteria, and then everything in between. And I think what it really just kind of comes down to, and the reason why I'm enjoying them so much, is that they're designed in such a way that there are plenty of routes and avenues that you can flank your enemy and catch them by surprise, but there's also not so many where you have no idea where the action's coming from, and you always kind of have the sense of dread that you're going to be getting shot from behind. And the best example that I can think of is the new map Operation Locker. It's got really nice long quarters, kind of something like you would find in Operation Metro, but where Operation Metro struggles, where there's no flanks at all, and it turns into a massive stalemate where it's kind of a boring gameplay experience where grenade spam is just flying all over the place, and there's really no progress of each team, and it's just kind of a meat grinder in the middle. Operation Locker, there are still plenty of flanking routes where if you're smart enough and you're good enough, you can kind of flank around and catch the enemy by surprise, and if you do it successfully, you are rewarded quite handsomely. And I would say it's that same design philosophy that DICE has continued through all of the maps themselves, and at least for me, that creates a very satisfying and extremely enjoyable gameplay experience. And then on top of that, we have Levolution, and I'm not just referring to the major events like the skyscraper falling down, arming a warhead, and then having that blow up a smokestack that crumbles and can kill your enemy. I'm talking more about the smaller stuff, being able to blow out walls, small buildings, the weather rolling in on Paracel Storm and Operation Locker. It all just combines to make the game feel much more alive, make the game feel more dynamic, and like you have an influence on how the map and how the match is going to progress. Like, there isn't many things cooler than using an RPG to punch through a wall and then using that new route that you just opened up to flank your enemy and take them out. First of all, you feel like a badass when you can do that, but it also just elevates the game, at least in my eyes, way higher than anything that we had back in Battlefield 3. Like, BF3's destruction, it was cool, it was nice, but it doesn't come close to what we have in Battlefield 4. One thing that kind of caught me by surprise is the vehicle combat, because normally I'm a guy that likes to just ground pound as an infantry unit. I normally don't like to touch the vehicles, and if I'm running with some friends, I will usually let them pilot the helicopter, or I'll let them drive the tank, and then I'll either gun with them or I'll just kind of support them on the ground as an infantry unit. But there's just something about the vehicle combat in this game that really resonates with me. And I think what it is good map design, like that's always gonna help, but also the new reload system. Having a resource now that you have to kind of manage and pick and choose your targets makes things very interesting when you get into different firefights. You kind of have to decide if you want to use your main cannon to try to take out infantry that are off in the distance, or if you should conserve that so that when the enemy tank just rounds the corner, you're not left with your pants down. And then on top of that, when you do get into firefights with an enemy vehicle and you're able to dodge one of his shots by either just outmaneuvering him or ducking behind cover at the last second, you know that you just wasted a very valuable resource for him, and not only did you not take any damage, you now have an even larger advantage because he just has less ammunition to take you out. And so I think it's that dynamic that I enjoy so much, but also when you're able to just take advantage of it and then go on an amazing kill streak with those restrictions, it just makes it an absolute blast. But as for the weapons in Battlefield 4, DICE has made some changes to the way that everything is balanced out. If you want to use a high rate of fire weapon where you do very well up close, be prepared for that thing to have a lot of recoil. Like, I recently unlocked the AEK for the assault class, and it rips through people up close. Like, it just dominates people in those engagements. But if you try to go for someone at medium to long range, it becomes a lot harder to stay consistent with all of your shots. And so what DICE seems to be doing here is that if you want to use those high rate of fire weapons, you'll do well in the engagements that they're supposed to do well in, but if you try to take it away from its element, it's not going to perform as well as you were probably hoping for, or kind of like how it worked in Battlefield 3. You guys know that in Battlefield 3, the high rate of fire weapons were usually king. That's the reason why the M16A3 was so popular, the AEK. Those high rate of fire weapons were dominant because if you could control the recoil, you could still take people out at a distance. And while that's still very possible in Battlefield 4, it's not going to be as easy, or at least that's kind of what I discovered so far. But then there are the low rate of fire weapons, and this is where things get really interesting, because if you've ever used the AK-12 from the assault class, which I'm sure you have, or the SAR, they are essentially laser beams, and it makes it very easy for you to take people out at distance because there's almost no recoil that you have to compensate for. And so what it seems like DICE is trying to do is to reward players for using those low rate of fire weapons more so than they were back in Battlefield 3, so that they are the preferred weapon for long range combat. And then the high rate of fire weapons, while you can still take people out at a distance, you're going to be at a disadvantage compared to someone who is using the low rate of fire weapon, but you're going to be able to dominate them up close. As for class balance, I don't want to talk too much on this topic because everyone is still trying to unlock all the weapons and gadgets, and so it's kind of hard to say which weapons or which class is going to elevate and become the dominant one, or if all of them are going to feel equally unique and powerful. But as of right now, I'd say that DICE has done a much better job at balancing all the classes. The recon feels very satisfying to use, especially if you want to play it as a Spec Ops class using like the motion balls and a carbine. But also the support weapons just feel more devastating and powerful as well. And so we'll kind of have to wait and see where things fall out, but I want to go out on a limb and say that class balance is much improved compared to Battlefield 3. So now I realize I've kind of painted a very rosy picture of Battlefield 4. It's flawless, it's got no problems at all, it's a phenomenal game, and while overall I would say it's amazing, there are some issues with it. And probably the largest problem right now is that it's full of bugs. They aren't game-breaking, but they do get a little annoying, and it does detract from the experience. One thing that I've noticed that happens all the time is that when you're in a tank, or even when you're ground pounding sometimes, your audio will cut out entirely. Like, you're just all of a sudden, you know, you hear the roar of the engine, and then we'll cut away for a couple of seconds, and then a minute later it will come back on. And it happens all the time, and it's kind of like, how did you miss this? Like, this is really obvious, and it happens almost every match. Like, how did you not catch this before the game launched? And so hopefully DICE is going to go in and patch things over the next couple of weeks, and DICE has said that they are going to be taking a much more proactive approach for patching Battlefield 4, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that is going to be the case. But as of right now, with all the bugs in there, I would say that that is the weakest aspect, and it does detract from things. But that is basically my first impressions of Battlefield 4. I hope you guys enjoyed. But what do you guys think about the game? What are your first impressions? Are you enjoying it so far? Are you a little disappointed? Let me know down below in the comment section. But until tomorrow, everyone, have a good one and take it easy.